Some of my regular viewers know I essentially grew up in my family's hardware store, which gave me, I think, a unique perspective when it comes to tools. And few tools have changed in my lifetime more than the cordless power drill. I remember when we got our first one in the store, it was big and bulky, it wasn't terribly powerful, the battery was awful, and it cost about 400 bucks. Nobody would buy it. But cordless drills have come a long way in the last 40 years. Now they're smaller, they're lighter, they're more powerful, the motors are brushless and filled with electronics, the batteries are vastly better than they used to be, the prices have plummeted, and an entirely new tool has come onto the scene that threatens to render the cordless drill obsolete. This is a cordless impact driver. It's sort of like the power drill's little brother. For a long time, it was like the child nobody really wanted to talk about, the dumb one that lived in the older brother's shadow. He'd come out once in a while to try to show off and get some attention, but then he'd just end up breaking something and getting himself locked back in the closet because nobody wanted to be around the noisy little brother with the short, stubby nose. But that was then. Now, cordless impact drivers have all but replaced standard drills. And a mere 4 years after making this video that essentially ripped the impact driver to shreds, I have to make a new one, admitting that things have changed. So much, I think, that for many tasks, impact drivers may be making standard drills virtually obsolete. And that is primarily due to one big feature that has changed everything. A feature so critical that honestly you should not buy an impact driver without making sure it has this: variable speed. You see, originally impact drivers did not have a variable speed feature. You just pulled the trigger and blasted the screw or whatever you were trying to drive right through the board if you weren't careful. That made it very difficult to set screw heads to the proper depth, or worse yet, you could easily split the wood. If you use pocket hole joiner, for example, forget about impact drivers. You could either blow out your pocket or strip the inside of the hole faster than you could say, "Crap, I blew out my pocket and stripped the inside of my hole." But variable speed is now quite common on impact drivers, and that has made the tool far more precise and, dare I say, even gentle when it needs to be. I find myself using this more and more, favoring its more compact size compared to my drill. Add to that the wide range of bits and accessories that now come with 1/4-inch hex shafts that fit into impact drivers, and this has become not just a driver, but a legitimate drill in its own right. So that raises a couple reasonable questions. For example, do you need a cordless drill at all anymore? For example, a lot of tool companies sell these in sets. Should you just skip the set and buy only the impact driver itself, maybe spending that extra savings on another cordless tool that you use more? Maybe. But there are still some times when a good old-fashioned drill is the best tool for the job. For example, drills have clutch settings. These can be very handy for a lot of things, but their most common use is for controlling how far you drive a screw, perhaps to make it flush with the surface or a piece of hardware. That's a concern whenever the work is going to be visible. Without that setting, you have to manually back off on the trigger to slow the speed of the drill to a crawl right before the screw head sets. You have to do that by feel because the drill doesn't know when the screw is seated, and you can easily go too far, either embedding the screw too deeply in the wood, or with more delicate work, you can even strip the threads inside the hole and ruin everything. But with the clutch setting, you don't have to worry about that. The drill will stop driving when it encounters the set amount of resistance determined by the number that you select on the dial. This is a game changer when you have a lot of screws to drive and you don't want to manually feel each one of them out, or when you're doing delicate work such as installing hardware. Some impact drivers do have rudimentary clutch settings that may help in some cases, but in my opinion, they're not nearly as adjustable and reliable as the drill in delicate situations. This is also called a drill for a reason. Its primary use is drilling holes. And while you can get drill bits for impact drivers, I just think a traditional drill produces a cleaner, more consistent hole. On many job sites, that might not matter. I admit, it is nice to switch between drilling and driving with a single tool using the impact's quick release chuck, but the speed and especially the torque of the impact is not as consistent. You really notice that with things like hole saws and some spade and Forstner bits. A drill can typically be switched to a low setting where it will apply a lot of even torque to drive a cutter to make a large hole. Whereas an impact driver, even one with more than one speed setting, will begin hammering that cutter when it encounters a lot of resistance. It's really a terrible way to cut a large hole, in my opinion. So that brings us to where a drill really shines, and that's its ability to use a wide variety of bits and other cutters. Anything from a 1/16 to a 1/2 inch drill bit, some even go up to 3/8. You can use wire brushes, the aforementioned hole saws, and other large bits. A drill will always be more versatile in that respect. But maybe you don't need all that versatility. Maybe you just want to drive screws and lag bolts and drill the occasional hole through a 2x4. In that case, the impact driver may be your best bet. They excel on job sites because their hammering nature can apply up to 3 times the torque in little machine gun-like bursts, driving home fasteners much more efficiently and with far less battery drain than a typical drill can. Of course, that also makes impact drivers noisy, obnoxiously so. But that's a small price to pay when you're building a deck or installing cabinets. And its compact size definitely fits into awkward spaces better than a larger standard drill will. So is the drill obsolete? Well, that depends on who you are and what you do. On a job site, for construction, installation, electrical work, that sort of thing, I can see how an impact driver may be the only tool you need. But in a furniture shop, even though I reach for my impact driver more and more these days, I still wouldn't want to be without my drill. Knowing when to use one over the other is important. I hope this video helps you to make that decision for yourself. Now, speaking about game-changing tools, I discovered Castle pocket hole machines years ago, and they have changed my shop. They cut much neater, tear-out-free pockets with clean pilot holes. And they cut at a lower angle than drill bit jigs, which reduces alignment drift during assembly and better centers the screw for a stronger joint. I started out with the Castle 110. Don't let the small size fool you. It's not just for bench use. It can also be carried right to your work and clamped on any size panel. It's the perfect portable machine. Later, I moved on to the TSM 12 benchtop unit, which cuts both the pocket and the pilot hole with a single lever. This is ideal for larger cabinet projects and production work. If you're tired of torn out pockets, dull drill bits, alignment drift, and other hassles that come with the standard jigs, have a look at a premium Castle machine. I know I'm never going back.